Happened in the 90s.
Matt was the fat kid, Steve was the black kid. Life wasn't always great, but you know what was? The 90s. Happened in the 90s. Yeah!
Anything these girls want, they get.
What's the biggest gift you've gotten? My rent, my car. I get in theaters, bars, whatever.
Now, they'll share their secrets of success.
I live off of these. These are my life.
The bigger the better. If it was uncomfortable, I would never have done it.
I am happy with the way I look.
I don't approve of all the silicone. You should go with what God gives you and be happy.
On the next Jenny Jones.
Jenny Jones tomorrow at 11 on 4.
This is Steve G and Matt G and Matt C. What happened in the 90s, a show where we talk about what happened in the 90s. So get out your Darren Dalton jerseys and your Dunkaroos, because it's just like the ocean under the moon. It's the same as the emotion that I get from you. You got the kind of loving it could be so smooth. Yeah, give me your heart and make it real, or let's forget about it.
Rob Thomas, Steve?
Clark the Shizart is in the building.
Thank you guys for having me. I just want to say real quick, first of all, thanks for crowbarring in a Darren Dalton reference as a native Philadelphia Phillies fan. That's a great 90s reference. And thank you both for having me. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of the show. I'm here as a schoolgirl giddy that I'm here on Happen in the 90s, on Hit 90s. It's fantastic.
Man, thank you for coming on, man. Just to let you know, Matthew Clark, the Shark, we don't have too many limitations with our guests. But one thing, don't praise your Philadelphia teams.
Can't do it. It's sacrilege. So you're I'm gonna guess you're a Braves fan, and Matt, you're a Guardians fan.
No,
a Guardian. I'm a Guardians fan. I'm a tribe called Guardians.
I'm a Steelers fan. You're gonna hate me extra because I'm a Steelers fan. Steve likes the fucking Cowboys.
I'm a Cowboy.
So you guys
you're gonna hate me extra.
Okay, so clear this up for me because I just had this conversation with somebody. Is it still socially acceptable to wear the Chief Wahoo hat?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's
I still have mine.
Next to the Brewers, I think it's the coolest baseball logo ever. It was in Major League. It's a cartoon. I understand the reason you get rid of it. I get it. But if you own one, I think you should still rock it. And if you own one, keep it, because those things are really jumping up in price if you try to get one now.
Yeah. It's tough. But I wouldn't. I think my wife would probably ask me about it. But if I I don't think I have a Chief Wahoo hat anymore. I just have this Red Sea one. But I'd rock it. It's a dope ass logo. It just sucks it's racist, I guess.
Right.
Like,
my wife's part Native American, so I don't. Yeah, I've never worn it. I always thought it was a cool logo from a kid, like Major League. That was it. That's the end of it. But
Vaughn.
That's my favorite movie, sports movie of all time, man.
Is it really?
Man, Clark Vaughn. Was it? Almost called him Clark Vaughn. Was it Charlie Vaughn?
No, it was Rick Vaughn, I think.
Rick Vaughn, Jesus.
Rick Vaughn.
See, mine's Sandlot though. I'm partial to Sandlot. I love me some Major League, but I don't know. There's something about Sandlot. You can't beat that as far as a sports movie, especially a baseball movie.
30th anniversary of Sandlot this year.
You know a guy from Sandlot, don't you, Matt?
Marty York. Marty York. He played Yeah in the Sandlot. And I just spoke with him the other day. He's doing they're doing like a mini tour right now. They're in Jersey this weekend signing, autographs. And the next week they're going to Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, for like a big screening with the cast. And they're doing like a little summer tour and
they're all together still, all the nucleus of that cast. They're all
everybody except for Benny the Jet. That guy became a firefighter, and he doesn't do any kind of press anymore, which is, well, I mean, everybody has their own reasons, but he was the most famous one next to Squints. That guy, you figured he could clean up a little bit with some of that that fan autograph money. But yeah, for whatever reason, he doesn't get involved.
Bambino, I mean, it's a no-go if Bambino ain't there though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's like, and he looks kind of the same. Well, I mean, he's like an adult now, but he still kind of looks the same.
Facial.
Marty York doesn't look the same. He was very skinny and scrawny in The Sandlot. That guy's like a bodybuilder now. I mean, I didn't know it was him until he told me. Like I knew him from working in the same building as him, and we talk, and then it came up one day. He's like, "Yeah, I played Yaya in The Sandlot." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, wait, what?
I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I played Yaya in The Sandlot." I was like, "You did?" And he's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "No shit." I was like, "I love The Sandlot."
You need to.
Wasn't he the run of the litter?
Yeah. Lead with that,
dude. How big of a fan of Boy Meets World are you, Clark?
Mr. Matthews? Why is it every time I come in there? I'm a big fan. I haven't really revisited the show in a few years, but as a kid, it was a sacred show to me.
It was lit, man. Like, did you know that Bambino, he had a cameo in one episode and he was like one of the bullies, and he was like ganging up on Sean and I think Sean and Corey, because Corey had like, I guess, snitched on him or something like that. And Bambino and his posse, they were like, "Oh, teacher's pet." Yeah. And they started tagging the high school. I was like, Bambino, we don't believe you.
Bambino?
Yeah.
Bambino was in there, and Marty York from that played Yaya was in an episode too. He played like one of the troublemakers that Mr. Matthews had to like discipline or something. But yeah, they did. That show had a lot of cameo appearances by people that like ended up doing other stuff and were in other movies. Like that was a lit show. Yeah. I just remember Corey Matthews had the Mike Schmidt like jersey in the room, and you could, they were supposed to be in Philadelphia, and they just took like every stereotypical thing they could. They're like, just throw a Mike Schmidt jersey up there, like that'll show him, And I was like, all right, this is cool. And I don't know, I felt like, how long was that show on? That show could have did that do its run?
93.
And then they brought it back to when they were adults. So I mean, that shit's the actual concept of that show ran for like what, 10 years, and then they brought it back for, I mean, when they were, and they had kids in the show and stuff.
Yeah. What was it? Girl Meets World?
On Disney, I believe.
Yeah, my wife watched it. I don't know, that stuff's tough for me because it's geared to kids. But yeah, Boy Meets World, that shit was, and we all had a crush on one of the chicks. Like me, multiple. I mean, I started off with Topanga, and then whatever. Whatever. Angela was fire too. So,
you know what?
Angela's like my parents' age.
Really?
Yeah, like when I saw that, I think she was born in like the 60s or something.
Oh, really?
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
Do you guys revisit Full House ever?
I do, because my wife watches it. Yeah. And we watch it. We do watch it a lot for this show. We watched a bunch of episodes. So
yeah, I just went down that rabbit hole recently. I saw Fuller House. I haven't seen Full House that much since I was a kid. So I watched a bunch of episodes, and I got to tell you, like, it's a lot of it. You're like, oh, it's so nostalgic, but some of it, man, it was like so hard to get through. Like the whole like Uncle Jesse, like, come here, give me a kiss, and she's like, you got it, dude. I'm like, oh. Family Matters holds up. I'm a big Family Matters fan. I think that show's great, but just because you jogged my memory with Boy Meets World, I wanted to bring up Full House. If you guys thought it was like what your policy was.
I mean,
you know what?
I'm fully
in hindsight. In hindsight, I see the comedic genius of the Olsen twins. I didn't appreciate I was a part of that machine that was like, oh, you got to do it. I was that kid. But like looking at it, like there was like a time when that show hit a pivot, like late 80s to early 90s, where like she was starting to become a focal point, and like the plots were involving her. And as a kid, I mean, I get it. It's written and shit, but like, man, they had the chops. She owned it. They owned it.
She owned it. It was kind of like how Urkel wasn't supposed to be like the main guy, but then they made him because he was so popular. The Olsen twins, you could see like right around mid-season 2, season 3, it was like full-on storyboard. I do like the show a lot. I'm not knocking the show. Yeah. I feel like some of it hasn't aged well, but a lot of it was really smart writing, actually. And I mean, Bob Saget, knowing how how raunchy he could be on stage and everything. Like he really pulled it off. Like he really was a great actor, you know?
I think that adds to it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Now, like, let's talk about your show. Like, so when did you start podcasting, and like, how did you come across the associates that you've had on the show?
So I started the Podcastle in 2015 with my buddies John and Mike, and they were like two of my best friends growing up. They didn't know each other. They were from like, you know, different circles and people move and stuff like that. So we decided to just start a podcast. And John Hassinger, who's my co-host on there, he was on like radio before and everything like that. And he did podcasts. So he kind of knew what he was doing, and where I didn't. So I kind of like took his lead, and we started doing that way. And then it kind of evolved into, Podcastle is kind of like a co-op right now. Like there's the Podcastle, then there's like the show with John and I that we call Nerd 35, and then there's a show with Robert and I. He's a film scout that we only talk about like movies and sets that he's been to. And then there's like the general show where we talk about anything. So it's kind of evolved into this like weird thing, but it's fun, but it's good times. And you guys should come on sometime.
Savvy.
Please.
Yeah. Man, we have to, man. And it's pop culture savvy, which I always appreciate, man. I'm a pop culture junkie.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's everything's so topical, you know? That's why I love your show too. Everything, it's like listening to two guys at a bar that have a really interesting conversation, and you're like, you want to chime in because you're like, no, I get it. Like I get, like, this is great. So yeah, you guys do a great job.
What a great explanation of this show, man. I love that.
Yeah, it's all I can describe. My wife likes it too. I had it on the other day, and like, she's like, oh, I remember that. I remember that movie. I remember that.
Steve, we're doing all right. I feel so good now. I'm blushing. Stop.
Barry Horowitz, man.
Barry Horowitz.
But I do like the one you were talking about with the guy that does locations and stuff. Like you talk about like where stuff was filmed, like in actuality, which I love that. I'm being from LA when when I moved to the South Bay, especially, and I saw these places like in Jackie Brown. I love when you just go to an actual place. You know, it might just be like a school facade or something, but you're like, oh wow, that's this place from that movie. And I feel like that's kind of what that one show is, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's movie locations, and he has a website, and he puts together the locations, you know, next to the shot of the movie, and it just, I'm with you, man. I still appreciate that when I see something that you remember from a movie, you're like, oh yeah, that was this, and you kind of appreciate how well they do some movies of like dressing up a set. Like for example, if you remember the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, the arcade is just a few blocks from where I live. But it's a furniture store now that you would never think was in that movie. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh, I can see that this is what it was. And you're like, oh, it was so cool. So yeah, it is. We do like talking about the movie sets and kind of like different locations and stuff like that, which is fun.
Well, today, my friends, we're talking about all things June 15th in the 90s. Starting off in 1990, Dick Tracy premieres in theaters. The comic strip detective finds his life vastly complicated when Breathless Mahoney makes advances towards him while he is trying to battle Big Boy Caprice's United Mob. Directed by Warren Beatty, starring Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, Madonna, Glenn Headley, and Charlie Corsmo, amongst others.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start this off. I've already said it in conversation, but this movie I did not appreciate as a child. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but for whatever reason, didn't clock it. And as an adult, love this movie. This is fantastic cinema.
And I feel like it holds up, man. We've talked about this off air, but like the primary colors, the use of it, and you really didn't see too many deviations from that, man. You know, you saw some purple, but I think it would be a hard purple. Like all of the colors were solid colors. And just like the neo-noir 1930s, 40s era, I've always had an appreciation for that kind of stuff. When, you know, you have a radio announcer that talks like Gene Okerlund or something, you know what I mean?
It's got that little beeping sound before the news, like beep, 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 beep. This just in, Dick Tracy just slapped a woman in the face, you know, stuff.
Or
like
even
that.
better, Don Adams from Get Smart. They talk like that. Yeah.
Would you
What I've always wondered was, if Dick Tracy, if they translated it into like real life, what is it like if when he's not on a case? Does Tess have access to his, walkie-talkie where it's like, calling Dick Tracy, we need like eggs and milk, and it's like, I'm on my way. Do they abuse that? Because you figure if he's on lunch, so like, Tracy, come in, Tracy here. Yeah, I can't find where you put the W9s at the station. Can you tell me? Like, I feel like, yeah, they would have kind of abused it a little bit, but I don't know.
Tracy, did you eat that last bagel that was on the table? Because that was mine.
Oh, Dick Tracy. You know what, they did a good job. We talked about this too offline, but the like you said, the colors to make it feel like a comic book. They did that right from the beginning, and we mentioned that they might have taken some cues from Batman and things like that, because it really does feel, I think, more than any movie I've seen, like the comic book. It feels just like the comic books. You know what I mean? Just the bright colors and the characters, and I mean, for 1990. I mean, they knocked it out of the park, and it's gritty. It's like, it's not cheesy, it's violent. You can, as an adult, like I still love watching it.
And it's over the top. Everything about it's over the top. They made the villains like I didn't read the comic book, but I'm assuming like Flat Top sort of kind of looks like the guy they created with the prosthetics, and that's another thing that they did is they didn't just like name some regular looking tough guy, flat top, and give him a cool haircut. They made like crazy facial prosthetics for these guys to set them apart. It's like every gangster gets uglier as you go through this movie. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Way over the top. I mean, even like Big Boy's character with like the hump and everything like that. Like they did so much detail, and they did, and the colors and the cars, like, I mean, they nailed it. And that cast too is no joke. I mean, we talked about this, but everything from Warren Beatty to Dick Van Dyke and Al Pacino and
Van Dyke, yeah.
And they're like small characters. It's like, hey, I need somebody to come in and play 5 seconds in a background. Okay, let me get Paul Sorvino. We'll throw him in some makeup, and it's just like, that's a legendary actor, and he's just in it for a little bit, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and James Caan, he's in there for one scene.
Like all of those people that y'all name, they are crushing it around this time too. James Caan and Kathy Bates, around this time they were in Misery. Paul Sorvino, wasn't he one of the guys in Goodfellas?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Al Pacino,
I'm sure
Dustin Hoffman was in it. I mean,
Dustin
Madonna.
Hoffman. Madonna. Shout out to early 90s Madonna. Like she knew how to sexy. Like that was
oh yeah. And she did the Vogue album from that movie. Like the song Vogue was on that album. That was a huge like album for her. Like the whole Dick Tracy thing, really. I mean, she was definitely already on the map, but that really kicked off the 90s Madonna. Like Dick Tracy gave her like an extra layer there. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Especially the acting. Like, she doesn't act a lot. And I know there's probably some people will say she sucks at acting, but this, I mean, she's kind of playing herself like a sex pot singer, but it's that 50s like songstress girl at the piano, like singing cocktail music to dudes, for tips and stuff. She, I mean, just annihilates it. She is.
Oh yeah.
Madonna.
Sooner or later, you're gonna be mine. What's cool is it kind of piggybacked off of Roger Rabbit, where you had Jessica Rabbit doing the sexy, sultry,
the Vixen
jazz club thing, and then Dick Tracy comes on and it's Madonna, and you're like, wow, like I couldn't think of anybody better to play her in 1990.
At the time, no, like this is it, and she kills it. But as like, to me, one thing that's like Steve said, the style, and just to piggyback on that, like the backgrounds, the visuals that they put in that aren't just like great looking visual movie shots, which this movie's filled with. They'll show like long shots, and it's some kind of combination of animation, painted backdrops, whatever they were doing in the 90s for special effects. Like this was the top of the game, because the cityscapes, and when they'll zoom into like what you think is a painting and there's a moving like subway car or something in it, it just looks so good. It adds to the movie so much. Like there's no need to suspend your disbelief. You believe whatever this city is like totally exists in this weird like noirish fashion.
Yeah,
there was no downtown.
No,
there's no. And you know what they do too, which is cool, just to crowbar in what you said about like the backgrounds. is they take you just through so many rides. Like at one point they're on the docks and there's like the big ocean liners behind them, and then you're in like an opera, and you're like, okay, this is a cool set. They're out at an opera, and then they're in the the garage with the shootout, and they jump all around. They take you to the greenhouse and to the club and the station and the kid and the junkyard and the diner, and it's like all those sets they didn't half-ass anything. They're like all the detail in there. It's like a beautiful film to watch visually.
Yeah, I wonder. I didn't see who the DP was, but whoever that was should have won a huge award for this. And even like when they're outside, I was watching the beginning of it before I got onto this meeting, and like they'll be in like a dark street, but there's like windows that have red light pouring out of them and stuff, just to sort of add to that weird like noirish thing. And it's just whoever the DP was really made what probably could have been a shitty movie like really fucking good. Like he added a lot of value to this.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I didn't realize this. I just looked this up, but it won an Oscar for best art direction and best makeup.
I mean, deservedly so for both.
Yeah,
for sure.
The first comic book movie to win an Oscar, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and with all the comic book movies and people talking about this shit, you'd think that more people would point to this. Like, again, I didn't appreciate this, so it wasn't really on my radar. But like, just if you go back, like this has to be one of the top 3 comic book movies of all time, and that's saying a lot because I love comic book movies. So,
oh yeah, yeah, because you're a fan, like you get it, you guys get it. If that's in your 3 in the whole like sphere of things, it says a lot. Do you think it's under appreciated or like ahead of its time?
Severely, man.
Both of those.
And I mean,
you don't hear about it a lot.
Disney owns that. What? Even though Warren Beatty owns the rights, does Disney have any say in this? How does that play out?
I'm not sure. I figure no. So what happened? What I understand was he bought the rights from Chester Gould, who was the original creator, and Warren Beatty. I mean, has like absolute rights. And then he produced it. Disney produced it with him having the rights to it. But I think from my understanding, is he owns them and he's not doing anything with them. The only stipulation is he has to release something as Dick Tracy every 10 years to keep the rights. That was like provisionally in the contract. So if you Google Warren Beatty, Dick Tracy, he has all these like weird 5-10 minute shorts on YouTube that he's in character, like talking just so he can like keep the rights. But I think, I don't think anyone else can do that until he passes, because with all the comic book movies they made and with Disney doing all their, new material, I mean, Dick Tracy's like an untapped market. You figured they would do something like a TV show or something, and they just haven't.
The mouse will get a hold of it when that man passes, because the mouse is infinity and never lost a battle, a match, a war. And so it sounds like Warren Beatty is the reason why we don't hear about it as much. He's kind of like keeping it in a closet somewhere. And I remember the machine behind it. McDonald's, I remember they had a promotion for it, and like you get a large cup or a large fry, you get a peel off, and it was kind of like the whole Monopoly deal where you match a set or something like that. And I remember having the toys, and they even brought the old cartoon from out the vault that I didn't even know of until this movie came out. And where I lived in Sandusky, Ohio, like early school morning, it would be like 7 o'clock or 7:30. They would play the old like 60s, 70s Dick Tracy cartoon.
Oh, nice. I remember those too. It started off with the aerial view of like the car and everything and all the characters. Like it was fun,
It was like that hard jaw, like 50s Superman like style cartoons and stuff. I definitely remember those.
And super racist too. I remember some of those characters from the cartoon. You're like, ooh, that's why you're not seeing those anymore. I mean, there was like some Asian American characters where you're like,
those are the ones that got at the worst of the cartoons for some reason. It's like, why were they going after them so bad? It's weird.
Yeah, everybody did, but it was some of those characters didn't hold up, and I feel like the movie did a good job of not including, stereotypes for the most part.
Well,
They kind of
you didn't have to, other than like I guess like you could say Italian, but nobody cares about Italian stereo. I think even Italians love Italian stereotypes so much they're like, yeah, whatever. But here,
forget about it.
yeah, exactly. But here, like the villains, it's so like I think maybe that's why like the visual of these guys is so like strange and like now it's cool, but I think it scared me as a kid. Where I mean,
Yeah.
like it's those they're not even like big characters, but and they're not in it that much, but it's just it's such a it takes you to like it does take it to that cartoonish level. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's not unrealistic. These are real people walking around, but it's like that same like Ninja Turtles movie thing where it's crazy to look at, but it's a physical thing. It's a real thing, and it looks cool.
Yeah, and they get you with that too. I like when I saw the movie in the theater at 9, that's a lot to take in. You're seeing all these like little face and influence and these like scary characters. Next thing you know, they're putting a guy in cement and dumping him in the river and like they're shooting up cops. And it was like, it's just so much. They pack such a punch in Dick Tracy with those characters. I feel like there's not a bad scene in the movie. Some might say like some of Madonna's scenes, they might say is a little like melodramatic, but that was the idea. But I feel like they didn't really waste any downtime because they had so many characters. They really like packed a good punch, casting wise in that.
And Clark, did you have the trading cards for Dick Tracy?
I had some of them. Yeah.
Because this is around the time when like trading cards were really like starting to come.
Yeah. I know did you have the cards?
I have the Dick Tracy cards and the Turtle cards, which
I had
both
the Turtle
like
cards.
came out in 1990.
Cards, yeah.
And so like that would introduce me to some of these villains. And so like when the movie came out, I remember being like just in anticipation, I couldn't wait to see these faces.
They really tried to I mean, like you mentioned the McDonald's stuff. The marketing was no joke for this movie. I mean, they had I remember I had the action figures. We've talked about this, everything but the blank, because the blank was discontinued and they didn't. But like the action figures were everywhere. I mean, like everybody had them. They were kind of side by side with Ninja Turtles at the time.
In a way.
Yeah. And then the car, they had like the police car that came with it. So I was like really into the accessories that you could buy with them because there was like some other stuff. And it's weird because it came and went. Like Turtles fizzled out over a few years, but Dick Tracy, that marketing like dropped right away. It was weird. You like had everything all at once and then nothing. And you're like, oh, what happened? But yeah, between the watches and the radio, like it was no joke with that marketing.
Plus, I'm sure they had some cool toy guns, which weren't like a problem at the time. That you could just get like a cool Tommy gun or like some cool shit that you wanted to have as a kid too. So,
oh yeah, I had a gun. It was I had the Dick Tracy.
I love that. I had a gun.
I had a gun. It was an Uzi. It was real. No, I had the yellow trench coat and the hat was like that wasn't plastic, but it was like the felt, like you could crumble it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like the fake St. Patrick's Day hats you see. It was like that kind of material. And I had this fake gun. I don't remember if it was like Dick Tracy license, but it was heavy. It was silver, and it had like silver bullets you put in. It didn't shoot anything. But I remember I brought that to Florida with my Dick Tracy thing, and I forgot I had it in the bag. And in 1990, it was a little bit more lax. If that were today, I would be in a cell.
Yeah.
But I remember the guy took it out, and he was holding the gun, and my mom's like, "Give us the gun. We'll get rid of it." And I got on the plane, no problem. But I was like, it's Dick Tracy, like I'm Dick Tracy. I'm trying to solve capers.
I gotta my gun, Mom.
Give me the gun. But it was all about that, all the like action figures and stuff, It was so cool.
But they back to the movie itself, like the villain, the main villain is Big Boy Caprice, which I love that name. It's Al Pacino in heavy makeup. And one, like you said, when they introduce him, he's like this Al Capone figure. I compare this movie a lot to The Untouchables. It has a lot of like similarities to that.
Yeah.
And he's got that Al Capone vibe, but I do love when he's dumping some guys in cement. It's called, what do they call it? The bath or something? I just thought that was so fucking cool.
Not the bath, big boy. Not the bath. Not the bath.
That, and then
What?
he kills like a club owner and gets Madonna's club. And I love how this thuggish gangster has to micromanage choreography for a good 20 minutes of the movie. I love that.
He's real
Come
Ike
on,
Turner
come
about
on! Like, Jesus Christ.
And he's doing the moves. He's like, come to the little,
Yeah.
let's get more.
Hoo-ha!
Yeah.
He breaks 88 keys as he slams the piano cover on it.
He's the
playing
best
better all
piano
night.
player in town. That was stupid.
Yeah. You know what's funny about Big Boy is he is modeled after Al Capone. Like that was the idea. And you just wonder, like, was Dick Tracy supposed to be like Elliot Ness? Because you're right. When I like watch Dick Tracy, I do draw a lot of similarities to the Untouchables.
It's so close. Like he doesn't have a team. It's just him and also I do love how Dick he's a detective in this whatever city's police force. But every other cop in the city is just like, "Hey Tracy, what's going on?" They're like little kids, like a puppy following around a big dog. Like, what are we gonna do now, Dick? And he's just, the
So
only guy
incompetent.
to actually do any police work in this town.
Right,
He's
like
the
when
only
Tracy
one with
gets,
yeah.
what's that?
He's the only one with the distinctive jacket. Like all the other cops, they just like,
They can't do it.
They come to me. I got the yellow coat.
The
It's like when
brightest
Tracy-
code makes the rules, guys. I don't make the rules myself, okay?
Well, when he was incapacitated in jail, and they play the back in business montage, which is my favorite part of the movie. I just think it's so like colorful and fun. But they show like the police department going to shit, like they can't do anything and they're like hitting cops and Tracy's just in the cell and it's like, is he the only guy that can like arrest somebody? It was so
I love
so
all
funny.
the montages in this because basically what this is the rise of Big Boy Caprice. He gets taken down by Dick Tracy in like the halfway point of this movie. In one of the most comically simple ways, they get somehow like make a diversion to clear this club out that Al Pacino owns or Big Boy Caprice owns, and then sneak up into the attic and use a gigantic manual drill just to drill a hole so they can like listen in on the conversations. I love how simple all these like plot points are. It's great.
And the Wi-Fi must have been great in 1930 because when Bug Bailey's listening, there's like the radio there and then the radio on his wrist, and like no matter if they're underground or in a cellar, like everything works crystal clear. They could be at the warehouse and like everything's fine. It's talk about amazing communications in 1930 Chicago or whatever.
Everywhere I go, it's Tracy's. He's here. He's taking down my shit. Yeah.
Having a thought.
And then I love how the way they figure out they're wired is that guy just spills a little coffee and it starts dripping. And then the villains just start doing like Jerky Boys pranks where they're like, "Hey, I'm going to be down at the docks."
Big payoff at the warehouse pier. And then they get him the cement bath. If you remember that scene, after they find out the wiretap or whatever, the radio, the microphone, they set up Tracy to go to the warehouse. And then, but do you remember he goes there and they like Tracy tries to shoot him, but he doesn't because of the cement.
Yeah,
like muzzled his gun.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was like,
I always felt like that
reload.
scene. They like edited something in and then cut it because it's kind of a weird cut. All of a sudden, like Bug Bailey's like ready to be dumped. The guys come in, they shoot, they miss. Tracy's covered in cement, and then like it ends, and you're like, well, what happened to Bailey and the two guys and Tracy? Like somebody would have died there. It was just weird, and then it like stops. They cut somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Like we should have known before the villains found out. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that was Dick Tracy until like probably when Blank shot the people. Like, oh, that was Dick Tracy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, why didn't? Okay, I guess we're all learning. You know, it was kind of weird. It was like a weird cut.
And speaking
the Blank.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask you the Blank. Do you guys think that was a good? Do you prefer it the way it is, or do you think the Blank could have been its own character that wasn't, spoiler alert, Breathless Mahoney playing him? Because I always thought the Blank,
I think it was cool character.
Was like cool enough. It would have been a cool character to have alone.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. But I like the voice freaked me out a little bit. Like even so, it's like that.
You're going to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the very like hole in the neck cigarette ad voice, but
It won't even kill you, but your days are over. You're
it
like,
looks cool
what's
though.
going on?
It does.
Yeah.
The actual visual of the face looks cool, and I do like how really the no face character, their only thing is just to create chaos by making phone calls. It's like, hey, you might want to go down to the docks, and then he'll call somebody else and like get them to, it's very hijinksy. There's a lot of phone hijinks in this.
Yeah, a lot of prank calls. The Midway Hotel. Send somebody down, and then it's very, very orchestrated too.
The Jerky Boys would have cleaned up in whatever city this. Frank Rizzo could have just created chaos in the city.
Chaos. They would have cleaned up. They couldn't handle it.
Dick Van Dyke, man, and shout out to him. Like he's a legend. And he was like the rogue district attorney, I believe.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Dick
Fletcher.
Tracy, and they frame Dick Tracy basically in 88 Keys, played by Mandy Patinkin. Is like the accomplice. They basically frame him and make it seem like Dick Tracy killed John Fletcher.
Yeah, and also
for sure,
Van Dyke, his character, to me, they do a couple shots where he really reminded me of the Penguin from the Adam West Batman. He has like the weird cigarette thing all the time, which I love from a district attorney, the evil cigarette holder. But he looks fucking crazy in this movie. Dick Van Dyke's never looked so evil.
Yeah, he does look evil, and with the glasses and that scene in the cemetery when Big Boy's like chastising him for messing up the deal with Tracy, and he kind of turns, and he does have that. I never really thought about it that way, but he does have like a penguin vibe from the old ones.
You're not out. You're not out. When you're dead, you're out. I love that too. I love Pacino. He eats up scenery so big in this movie. It's fucking great.
Scene too, where he's like, "You're not out." He's walking. The silhouette of the city behind them and like the moonlight on their heads is such like beautiful, like chilling cinematography. That scene, like they nailed that.
Yeah,
that scene where they're all walking, like all the thugs and everything. It's pretty intense.
At some point,
you
Dick Tracy realizes,
then you out.
Like the enemy of my enemy is my enemy.
They're like, wait, what, Dick? Or do you have fucking head injury? He's like, no, wait, the enemy of my enemy is my friend or my enemy? I love that. Also, this is what I wanted to ask you guys, because I saw when I rented the movie. It's classified as a comedy whenever you rent this, like on Amazon Prime. Do you think
it really?
This has any I don't really classify this as a comedy. I feel like it's like an over-the-top action movie, but comedy, I don't know. There's a couple comedic moments in it, but I don't know if I classify it as such.
I have a theory about that Disney branded it as a comedy to play down a lot of the violence in there, like to make it more like comic booky, but it's there. 100%. It's not a comedy. There are some funny scenes, but
unintentionally,
no, it's an action movie.
The Al Pacino shit is funny, but like I don't think he meant it to be funny. He's just being Tony Montana in like neo-noir 1930s fictional town.
Well, in the end, though, he is really funny when he like kidnaps Tess, and he's like, "This is how life is," and they're going through like the El Chapo escape tunnel. He's like, "Things happen," and things, he's going through like this philosophical like diatribe as he's kidnapping this woman. I love that.
Also, what is that thing? What is that tunnel? I mean, it's not a train thing, right? He's on like a cart. Like,
I just wrote El Chapo tunnel because that's really the only frame of reference I have is like a drug dealer's escape tunnel.
That's what it is. Yeah. It's just so it's so funny. I want to be caught dead in a place that permits gambling.
Yeah, hell yeah. You must have the wrong guy, Mr. Tracy. It is very Al Capone in Untouchables, where he's just like always, it's always in the front when the cops show up. Like, what are you talking? This is a private party, sir.
It is.
You need an invitation to this event. And Prune Face, it's like, we know where all the villains are. It's the group of ugly ass people in really nice suits. We get it.
We know where they are, and they're all easily arrestable. They're like all in the same room at the same time. There's no discretion with Big Boy's gang.
Oh, yeah.
They're all just hanging out. I do love that when they do like the meeting and with Spaldoni and everybody, and they're spying on them, that Big Boy kind of lays down the plan of how like the modern day mob works. Like, yo, we're all going to work together. We're all going to get, or not modern day, but like the Al Capone days. Like, yo, this is how the outfit, which was Capone's gang, was called. That's how they operated. Like, we all work for me. We all get a piece. That's how it is. If you don't, you're going to get whacked. And they put that early on, which adds credence to, to Big Boy being like Al Capone. I mean, it's like side by side on so many levels.
Get down or lay down.
Just missing Sean Connery making racist Italian remarks constantly throughout the movie, but
what's your name before you changed it, you guinea wop?
Just like a Dago, bring a knife to a gunfight.
And shout out to Danny Elfman, man, who did the sound and he did the score, the same guy who did the Batman.
Danny Elfman, dude, like the 90s. I mean, we all know there's like a couple of people that like are like these people that make movie themes. I can't think of the name right now. Not choreographer, whatever it is. But this dude,
composer, like James Horner and stuff like that.
Composer. Danny Elfman and the guy that did the Star Wars theme. Those are the two people in the 90s. But I feel like when you actually sit down and look at it, Danny Elfman had Batman. He had this. He had any Tim Burton movie that came out in the 90s.
Just about, yeah.
So it's crazy to see. And like when you actually sit back, like I said, when I watch this and the movie starts and you hear that theme, I was like, man, I wonder if Danny Elfman did this. And sure enough, goddamn, he did. So.
Oh, yeah. And you can hear he takes a lot of cues from the Batman theme, like we're on some of the bridges where they rise up, like it's almost like it's familiar if you haven't heard it before. It gives it like an extra edge to it, which is awesome.
I feel like everybody did a 10, man, like from beginning to end. The cast, the direction, the cinematography, the score, and it's just unfortunate that Disney or Warren Beatty is kind of keeping it away from the public, man. It should be celebrated like how the Turtles are celebrated, like Star Wars is celebrated. Any of those Marvels.
Yeah. And it is. And it's 33 years, and that's the last thing that they really ever put out. And Dick Tracy was beloved before the movie. I mean, those comic books are from way, way back, and the cartoons. And I mean, it's just a shame that there's really, I mean, thank God the movie's as good as it is with that cast, that if they are going to do it once, they did do it right, and we have that. But there's just so much more they could do. I mean, they could do a TV series,
oh my god,
a mini series, and it would be like incredible.
Make it contemporary. I mean, it's a detective story. You could make this in now, and you could almost like change it. But even if you did it in this time period or whatever, like you want to call it, like 50s or 30s or whatever it is, you could totally. They try to do this with everything. Like they do Night Court remakes, do something that nobody's really, it's on their radar and catch them off guard. Like this, I feel like you could do something low budget and still have this weird, like cool edge and style that this movie has. Cause it's really just, set dressing, primary colors, and, the makeup is going to cost a lot, but I feel like that's probably pretty cheap in comparison to like CG or whatever people are doing now.
But that's the trade-off. Yeah, like the money that you would put in makeup, the trade-off is that you have CGI, because this was one of the last films to have like actual painted like background, man, and that costs a lot more than just like getting on a computer and
and also like that can go bad, especially now when you rewatch it. I watched one of the Aliens movies recently, and it utilizes a lot of like painted backdrops in the special effects. And in that, it is noticeable, like when they're doing something where it's like, man, this looks like fucked up. This holds up so well. And I think it is because the artistry of whoever was doing that specific special effect of like, this is some kind of green screen. When they're showing like these people on docks and there's this huge cityscape that's like sort of half animated painting, whatever that technology is, it's like, this is sort of unheralded at the time. And like, especially now in the time where comic book movies are almost really the only thing being made, you'd think that this would totally be getting talked about more, on top of the fact that everyone loves the 90s so much,
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I'm just so surprised that they haven't done anything with this. And
That's
It
why.
really is a revolutionary film in terms of like art direction and what they did with the resources they had in 1990. I mean, just to pull that off. And the movie, I think, was supposed to be made a lot earlier. I think Warren Beatty was trying to make it in the early 80s. And just because like things fall through or whatever, they didn't make it till 90, which like what a great movie to kick off 90, between that and Turtles and like everything else. It was just such a fun time. It was a great time to be a kid.
Turtles, Dick Tracy, Ultimate Warrior just beat Hulk Hogan. Little disappointed about that. The Bad Boys went back to back, but yeah, man, it was a good time to be a kid in 1990, man. And
SummerSlam was in Philadelphia.
See, there you go, man. Like we got to minimize it. We love you, man.
It's okay. It's okay. You're from Philly. It's all right. You
can't help
that
it
against you. It's fine.
But also,
Fresh Prince, he would never do anything to stand out or hurt somebody.
And I do want to say one other thing, just like
Rock.
in general about like movies like this in the 90s, and this also goes with like the Ninja Turtles movie. There is something, and people need to hear this now. Like CG movies are fine. I just saw the new Spider-Man movie. It was great. Love CG. But there is something about having a physical set, putting makeup on somebody like this, or like having Ninja Turtles and whatever you want to call that, makeup or whatever, costuming, and being able to light something that's physically there. It makes it look so much better. Like these people aren't believable people, but there's something about lighting them and them being in a real thing where it doesn't bother you at all. It almost like, it's just like, oh, there's like these ugly fucking weirdos walking around this town. They're terrifying.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So cool.
And to think about the amount of time that put in there. I mean, you read about some of the stuff on like IMDb about Dick Tracy, like Big Boy Caprice, Al Pacino's makeup took like, I don't know, 6 hours or something to get into. And Little Face was like a whole thing. I mean, even when you look at like the Batman movies, like the early ones, I mean, it took, hours to get these people ready. Like sometimes it took like 6 hours and then they'd have to stay in there. I mean, just to pull it off that way is incredible. And so much in Dick Tracy, there's like easily 15, 20 characters in that movie that required like heavy prosthetics and everything.
Or even small
I mean, it
ones.
was like
there's a couple reporters like at the beginning when they're just like, hey, Dick Tracy, what do you think about Big Boy Caprice? And he's just like, like walking through a crowd. But like one guy has like a gigantic fucking nose and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like everybody, when they could put a prosthetic on somebody, they did it. And it's just, it adds to it a little bit. You got Warren Beatty looking all handsome and then some guy that looks like a human rat asking him questions. It's crazy.
That I forget that character's name, but he has a name. He is fun. He is like the human rat.
Yeah, he looks very rat-like, so they nailed it.
Yeah, it's I can't think of his name, but yeah, they the reporter guy. It is funny.
They do have a lot of great names in this too, like Tess's name. Tess is Dick Tracy's like love interest, and she's this pure spirit, and her last name is Trueheart. I never knew that, but that's so apropos to the character,
Yeah, Trueheart.
We haven't talked about the kid either.
Yeah, the kid we kind of glanced over, but the kid whose name is, this is somebody, his name's Charlie Korsmo, but I think he's still acting, but I usually...
he retired.
Okay, well,
he's
usually
like a lawyer or something now.
With a kid, like, it's like a main character. It sometimes sucks, but this kid actually nails this fucking character too. He's a tough little kid.
I think
kind of pissed me off at first, man. It's like, dude, Dick Tracy's trying to change your life, man. You over here in a shed with this dude that's beating your ass. And like when they feed him, well, before they feed him, he like runs in front of a train. Only crackheads do that. That kind of pissed me off. As Dick Tracy's like chasing after him. And then like he's just like eating everything. When do we eat? When do we eat? When do we eat?
When we eat. When we They also took him for I felt the same way. You're like, you're an ungrateful little shit. Like this is Dick Tracy. He's basically like your dad now. Like smarten up.
He's taking you to buy suits, kid. You were about to wear you were begging some fucking crackhead for a piece of chicken in a shack earlier. You can have a little respect.
I prefer smelling like pee-pee and outside.
I think Charlie Korsmo, because he was in a string of early 90s movies. He was in Hook and he was in a few other ones. He had like a good run there. And I think he nailed it as the kid, He was like an unknown at the time, and they could have went kid roles are hard to fill, and a lot of them don't age well, but I think they did a good job with him.
Oh,
Did
damn.
you know Macaulay Culkin was considered for that role, but he turned it down to be in Home Alone?
I think he chose right, you know.
He made the right move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Catherine Hahn was in it,
Charlie
though.
Korsmo kind of killing in the 90s. He was in What About Bob, which I love, Hook. And then later on, not right before we graduated, but he was in Can't Hardly Wait also. So he was acting as like a teenager.
Right. Yeah.
I think he was the nerd. I think he was one of the nerds that is trying to like mess with the jocks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He might have been, but Charlie Korsmo, dude, just getting a lot of how much food this kid had to eat on set for those scenes, though, when it's like the montage of them meeting him and eating. Like, this kid's eating a lot of food. And I was a fat kid, and I wasn't even eating this level of diet.
Oh, he was not. He was a machine. Juicy. The ice cream, and then he'd throw it, and like the chili, and it was just
that pork chop, man.
Donuts. Oh. I mean, this kid also, the blaseness of him acting like an adult, because he'll be in a diner and be like, "Hey, Dick, you want a donut?" Dick's gonna pay for the donut, kid. Like, you can't just be offering up shit that somebody else is paying for. This kid's he's salty.
Like, who raised you?
You want a donut?
Steve
Give
the
me
Tramp.
A coffee. Do you want a broken arm?
Yeah, right. He's trying to fucking rob the people. I mean, goddamn, kid.
How ungrateful. What was he eating in the orphanage? Like oatmeal? I remember thinking that was disgusting.
Yeah, it's like,
is that what it was?
It's like, please, sir, can I have some more? It's that level of orphanage, you know.
Get out of here, kid.
One more $6, and I'll please have some.
What'd you bring me? But that guy and again, I think this is why I didn't like this movie is like when Dick Tracy saves this kid's living with some like, I don't even know
that's
what
Steve the Tramp.
Yeah, that's Steve the Tramp. Okay, well, Steve the Tramp. Yeah. That guy's scary as fuck. Tramp. I don't like that.
He's no joke, and the fact that he's living in the junkyard, it wasn't like a homeless encampment off by the river. It was like the middle of like a train yard with scraps.
It was one decision away.
Yeah,
and it was a house. It was like a constructed.
Was it a house though, man? I mean, it was a shanty. It was like where you go ice fishing, basically. You know,
I feel like it was a shed behind a house.
He took the time to make it. You know, it wasn't like a tent or he was just sleeping under a thing. It was like a poorly constructed shanty, but it was like 5 feet from the tracks. It was such a weird spot to have him.
And he had like leprosy or something. He was like, dude, there was some kind of chemical because his the facial, like you gotta exfoliate or do something, sir, because the shit's fucked up.
My boy left me. All I have is my garbage can lid and my wooden plank.
Some guy whooped my ass, took my kid, and my shanty's all fucked up. I don't know. I'm gonna go kill myself. I gotta go.
We got a place downtown for guys that hit kids.
He's scary, dude. He's the tramp guy. That guy is terrifying, dude.
The video. He's the first villain. He's the first caper in the video game. I don't know if you remember the Nintendo game they had for Dick Tracy.
I do.
But he's
that
like
was
the
extremely
first
hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard.
I was discussing like video games with my wife because she's like, I could never beat the Disney ones like Aladdin. I was like, because they sucked and they just they made the controls so bad that you just could never get to the end. So there probably was no end. I
did go down that rabbit hole recently on the SNES Classic, the Aladdin and the Lion King, because it's basically the same game, same controls. And Aladdin I was able to beat using the save points. You have to like keep saving it. But Lion King, you can't touch. It gets too hard. And without the cheat mode where you can save it, and keep going, you could never beat that game. Like I remember in the 90s playing that. I'm like, you can't beat this. It's just like too hard.
There was an X-Men game on Genesis that was like that, where it was like, there's no way to beat this game. Like they've made a game where they didn't finish it. They just made it so you couldn't get past this point to find out that there was no end to the game.
Yeah, right. That's kind of how Dick Tracy the game was. It just got so hard and so ridiculous. Like you'd be walking down a level and like safes would start falling out of like you'd have to move. You're like, what's going on here?
That leads me to the question of like, do you guys have any 90s games that are on your bucket list? Like before you die, it's like grinding your gears that you never beat that game. Either Nintendo, Sega, or Super Nintendo.
The original Nintendo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, like the first one, there was like I mean, when you got there was that water level, I got past it once and got like to where you could get up on the and sort of move in the open world. And whatever
the other
level
side.
after that, I gave up because it was too hard. It was just such a hard fucking game, dude.
The hardest. Same here. It used to be Jaws, but I ended up eventually beating that. And then Turtles, I can't touch it. I just can't.
The original.
Yeah, after the water levels, it's like designed for you to die. You're gonna get run over. You're not gonna get out of like the next sewer.
But then there's
They
some
get ya.
14-year-old kid on YouTube will be like speed run Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they'll beat it in like 10 minutes, and you're like, you mother, how'd you do that?
Hurt you. It's too frustrating. It's a stressful experience. You play that game and you're just like, it's so much fun for a while, and you're just like, it's just is too much.
And you get to beat all the turtles. You're like, oh, Raphael throws. Like, remember if you had full health, like they would throw their weapon too. It added a little bit. So
yeah,
shout out to those Turtles games. But we didn't even care because once they made that arcade game that eventually made it to NES, that was the shit. That's the one.
Game over.
That was next level. Yeah.
When that arcade game came out, I spent an entire day one time on vacation with a stranger, like a stranger kid. We pumped like $40 of quarters that whole day. And we're like, this is the best thing like they've ever done. It was just so cool. You could like spawn back in there, and it was side scrolling, and like the Foot Clan. Remember there was like different color Foot Clan guys too. There was like a purple one and then a white one. Like it was so bizarre. It was so much fun.
Good times, man. But also in 1990, Gremlins 2, the new batch premieres. The Gremlins are back, and this time they've taken control of a New York City media mogul's high-tech skyscraper. Directed by Joe Dante, starring Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, John Glover, Robert J. Prosky, and Robert Picardo.
I love this
Robert Prosky was the best. He was like the vampire in that, right? The actor that played the Dracula.
Yeah, hell yeah,
Dracula
it was him.
Yeah, that was a funny movie, man.
And Christopher Lee, I forgot to mention.
Oh shit, he was in this. Saruman from Lord of the Rings is in this.
Yeah,
legend.
You want to talk evil dudes? That guy. I feel like even if you knew him, like as he was in your family, he would just creep you out. You'd be like, "Hey, do you want a peanut butter sandwich?" You'd be like, "Yes." With jelly, and you just get shivers down your spine because of how he talked. He's very evil sounding.
You guys remember the deleted scene in the new batch with Hulk Hogan? I think that it might not be deleted in like
it's not deleted.
It's not deleted when they breaks the fourth wall and it's just Hulk Hogan talking to the screen.
He's in the movie brothers. He's in the movie theater, right?
Have you guys ever seen the Key and Peele where it's the Hollywood sequel doctor and it's played by Peele and he's like, it's in the movie.
That's it. I don't even care anymore. We got the Hulkster in this bitch, so it's done.
Yeah, it was all about Gremlins too. And like, why don't we have one turn into an electric gremlin?
You're talking about a Gremlins made all of electricity going this way and that, and then he turns into a big piece of lightning. It's in the movie.
In the movie. Why don't we do a female one in the movie?
You're a crazy person. I can't even talk to you, but it's in the movie.
Did Joe Dante direct the original, or was that Spielberg?
Yeah, he directed the original. I think Spielberg produced it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people widely pan this second one, but maybe it's because I was a kid. But I like this one too. I mean, the first one's always going to be the best one, but this one just went crazy with it, and I like that. This is like a very 90s sequel, you know?
It's the same for me as it is with Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 1 is obviously a superior, classic, perfect film, but I always like the second one better just because as a kid, you've seen it more, and it's like, that's how it is with Gremlins too. Like the first one's obviously like a good movie, but the second one, there's just so much fun in there. You know,
there is, man, because it's Warner Brothers movies. They like to dig in their library. So there was like several nods in this movie. There's a nod to Batman, and we've mentioned Batman before. Warner Brothers actually wanted to drop this on this day to prevent Dick Tracy from taking Batman's record of opening weekend. So Warner Brothers, you shiesty Vince McMahon evil motherfuckers.
Wow.
Was that diabolical Hollywood shit? I love that. I kind of like that, but I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Did the new batch do well theatrically?
Not as well as the first
41 million. It lost money, but I feel like I don't know. It's kind of one of those cult following movies, right?
I feel like that one
I
is
think
more
so.
of a like the VHS because
Yeah.
that's where I was like ingesting a lot of those type of movies. It was like that was a library rental or bored on in a summer vacation rental type thing.
Oh yeah. And they had because they introduced so many gimmicks in that movie, I feel like it was just so much more fun to rewatch on VHS. I think I watched that like once a week when we first got that on like VHS. It was just so much fun with the electric gremlin and the spider one and the clamp corporation. Like it was all these moving parts.
Well, and also like even Gizmo, he goes like full Rambo, so you get like him with like the cool bow and arrow and stuff, and that's kind of what I think this was more of a toy, do this, and we're gonna have so many toys come out of this that we're gonna make millions just off that. I bet they made a bunch in the fucking toys.
They had a game too that was fun, like a Nintendo game where you were Gizmo, and it was kind of weird, some of the settings, but it took place like in the building, and it was like it wasn't even a side scroller. It was like an aerial view down kind of thing.
I think I remember that now. Like
but it was good.
Like that almost. Do you remember that
game,
Bomberman?
Yeah, it was like one of those, and it was fun. I don't know. It was cool. It was a fun movie though.
And Tony Randall, he did the voiceover because like one of the gremlins they took the potion in the lab and they become civilized and they start talking.
Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.
And the voice was Tony Randall from Odd Couple. R.I.P.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah, he was trying to educate the other gremlins, like on some like Malcolm X shit. Like, we're bigger than this. We're not just gremlins. We're not monolithic creatures. We can do more. We can fly. And there was a flying gremlin. So they were doing a lot in this, man, with these gremlins, man.
There was a gremlin that just straight up was in drag with fucking makeup on. I mean, they went full. I mean, I think that probably immediately after the civilized gremlin was talking, then Lady and the Tramp gremlin came out shaking those cans. Look at that.
Yeah, they're shaking the cans, and they also did to the voiceover, the sophisticated one. Remember, he had like his own TV show because it was the Clamp Corporation did like programming. So he was like they were broadcasting him, and there's so much going on. So many
like Masterpiece
cool
Theater
characters.
or something.
I like how the
it was
female
so much.
gremlin looks like a Peg Bundy version of it's like that level.
Oh yeah,
shitty. It's drag.
Looks like Fergie or Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, hell yeah, I like that.
They were doing something. Yeah, it was fun. That is a fun movie.
Shout out to the Gremlins, man. In 1992, Jeff Reardon breaks Raleigh Finger's save record with number 342, planned for the Minnesota Twins.
And look at Kirby Puckett celebrating with his fucking awesome ass.
He's great.
That's a manly Al Borland goatee Jeff Reardon has. That's
Puckett, Cecil Fielder, those early 90s sluggers that were not in shape, they just slugged them, were awesome, man. It's like a lost era of baseball. Those
Tony
guys,
Gwynn.
they just
Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn with the high ass voice. I always thought Tony Gwynn, when you heard him talk, you were like, wait, what was going on here?
That's not matched up. Was Kirby Puckett the guy? He had some health problems, didn't he? He passed away, right?
Yeah.
He passed away, yeah.
Yeah, he was good, man. He was a slugger.
We just talked about Kirby Puckett recently, I think.
He was no Lenny Dykstra, but I mean, he was up there.
Yeah, there he goes.
Lenny's partying though.
Lenny would never do drugs.
No, he would. He might take them, but he's only doing
not to sidetrack it off Kirby. But do you remember when Lenny was on the Mets and then he goes to the Phillies, and then the next year he's like 3 times the size, and you're just like, wow, man. Like he was like he had like the Barry Bonds thing.
I'd like to pinpoint all the steroid users, like the famous ones, and find like a picture of them the year before they found out about juicing, and then get Mark McGuire the year before he got on the cocktail, and then see what the progression is. Because I feel like there's probably like a 3-month gap where Mark McGuire looked like me, and then Mark McGuire looked like The Rock with a goatee and a gigantic fucking head, and some fucking strawberry blonde hair.
I think, but Barry Bonds is probably the best example of that. They have a picture of him on the Pirates, and then when he goes to the Giants, and he's like the skinny guy, and then you see him, and he's like, his head's like a bowling ball, like it can't even fit into the helmet from all the roids, man. It's wild.
Yeah, if you watch Rookie of the Year and see him in that, and then see what he looked like as like when he broke the record, it's like, holy did somebody actually just put an air hose in your head and just fucking pump it up?
Rookie of the Year, man. I forgot about that. I forgot that he was in that.
Funky butt loving. I mean, there's a lot of stars in that. I think Bobby Bonilla is in that shit. Barry Bonds is in that. I think. I was gonna say Kirby Puckett. I don't think Kirby Puckett's in it, but yeah, shout out to fucking Rookie of the Year. Love that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Pitcher's got a big butt.
For the Cubs.
What's that?
I just hate that he played for the Cubs.
I know.
Ever since 2016, I mean, I just,
Daniel Stern's also in that movie, and a lot of people forget that, and he's amazing.
Yeah, he is good in that. He's like the manager, right?
I think he's like a trainer. He's just like basically the babysitter. He's a mentally handicapped person that works for the Cubs. That they're like, hey, look after this kid.
Yeah,
he's the caretaker basically.
Did Funky Buttlovin ever do any work after that? I feel like that kid was like a character
kid in
after
King
you've
Arthur's
seen.
Court. He was a kid in King Arthur's Court, and he was in American Pie. He was one of the buddies in that crew.
No, not Thomas.
You mean the blonde, like chubby kid that was like? Did he just say Funky Buttlovin? You mean that guy?
That kid, yeah.
He was in Heavyweights, I think. I think he was like. Remember, they had like a cool camp counselor that allowed them to like cheat on and get like candy and stuff. I think he was that dude, if I'm not mistaken. It might just been a fat blonde kid with blonde hair. I mean, but
no, I think you're right. But yeah, Steve, that other guy, Thomas Ian Nichols, I think his name is. He got a lot of work after that because
for sure
the American Pie thing
put
him back on the map because he was kind of like an adult at that point.
That is very weird too for us as like people who grew up on Rookie of the Year, that guy went from Rookie of the Year and the next time I saw him, he was eating pussy in a movie. That
was weird,
comedy.
man.
It's kind of bizarre, but
John Candy was in that too as a small role. And
you're right. He's the radio
announcer. Yeah.
Dude, shout out Rookie of the Year. Crucial 90. Maybe that's my favorite sports movie, Steve. Let's retract that.
Same summer as Sandlot too. Those two movies, like that was a good.
Really quick to sidetrack again. Do you guys remember the baseball movie where the kid actually inherits the Minnesota Twins? It's called Little Big League, and it was a more intense kids baseball movie where a kid's a coach, and at one point the movie has to fire a full-grown man from a baseball team, and almost gets his ass whipped by a professional athlete. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I always confuse that and Angels in the Outfield. I know they're two completely different movies, but I've seen them both, I think, like once, and I always get those two mixed up. But Little Big League's the one where it's kind of more like serious, right?
It's kind of. I mean, there's still elements of like Rookie of the Year where he's like, hey, let's hang out and like drop water balloons out of a window with some like, athletes. But I think for the most part, it's just he's a coach. And there's all like the stuff about that. I'm telling you, watch the scene where he fires the guy. It's one of the most funniest. It's out of place because it's supposed to be a kid's movie, but he fires this athlete and the guy's like, man, what the hell, Billy? What the? And it gets real intense. It's very
really?
funny.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Yeah, dude. Oh, sidetrack Sally, Steve. Sorry about that.
But in 1997, the Great American Bash 97 is airing through pay-per-view in WCW, and they're at the Mark of the Quad Cities in Moline, Illinois. And I'm only calling that out because Randy Savage, he has a match with Diamond Dallas Page, and it was a Falls Count Anywhere. Randy Savage, he won with the assistance of his NWO crew, and this is probably one of Diamond Dallas Page's like biggest rivalries, him and Savage, because it would go on for over a year. For different reasons.
DDP, shout out. And also, rest in peace to a legend, Macho King. Did he ever have like a woman, Steve? Like, did he have a sensational Sherry when he was in WCW, or was he just flying?
His wife.
Was it his wife?
Kimberly Page. She was one of the Nitro girls.
Okay.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out to Randy Savage, man. He was my favorite. That's why I have just so much respect for him from when he was the king and then the man. He was the best, man. I loved him.
And
Plus,
did you guys know
Sorry, go
Diamond
ahead.
Dallas Page, he sued Jay-Z at one point, and they settled out of court for, Jay-Z always had the Rock,
Really?
the Rock sign, and DDP, like that was his thing. And
But isn't
I
that like
didn't
a
find
college thing too? Like, didn't that come from like
that's a Delta sign
yeah.
for the black sorority.
Well, DDP though, I didn't know he was that litigious, but I do like that. I like to hear that he's getting on his,
You sued him for the hand gesture?
I like
Yeah.
that. Well,
How does that
DDP
work?
though, did you expect him to be still around and relevant? Because I feel like what DDP's life is now is trying to let as many old wrestlers survive as possible. Because he brought Jake the Snake back. Jake the Snake's alive.
He kept Scott Hall around long enough, man. I mean, well, not long enough, but longer.
Yeah. I mean, there was only a matter of time. I don't think there was a lot you could do on that one, but he got fucking Jake the Snake out. And if anybody watched Dark Side of the Ring, I didn't think that was possible, dude.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't. That was no joke.
Jake the Snake was suffering, but DDP, look at this guy.
Time.
Legend,
Diamond
man.
stud, dude.
Self high five. And they don't do the original WCW music, which I hate for some of the wrestlers, because like the intros that they had were close to copywritten music. Like I believe Even Flow was Raven's theme song or like a variation of it. DDP had Smells Like Teen Spirit. I guess it was just too close to the original songs. And so when you watch them on Peacock, they don't have that, which I feel takes away from it. Like you don't hear Hogan coming out to Jimi Hendrix, which was one of the most badass intros to come out to.
It's the same thing that's about like watching SNL now, where you can't watch the musical shit. It's like, get over all this, like figure out a way to get around these copyright things where we can just like, you should be able to watch and get the experience that you had back in the day. And I don't understand this shit where we're like, now we have to change the entrance music. Really?
You see so much of that in streaming now because there's so much intellectual property intertwined. That's why like Star Wars will disappear from Disney Plus, and because they had a contract to go on Prime for 2023 in September or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Like they got to figure that, they got to sort that shit out. That's especially true with video game re-releases. They can't like re-release certain Tecmo Super Bowl things because of the license in 90 and this. And perfect example with the SNL and the music guests. Like you gotta figure that out.
Well, that's like a historical thing to me, at least. Like I grew up on this stuff, so it's like, why can't I just go back? You're erasing something. Like I can't watch like some of the stuff that we watched. Like I forget who the host was, but Soundgarden was like the musical.
Jim Carrey, you guys did it on your show.
And it's like, I can't watch this amazing performance from Soundgarden that you're never going to get otherwise. Like, and you're just missing out on that forever because NBC doesn't want to pay whatever it is, whatever the bullshit is. It's stupid.
And that episode, what they did, Burden in My Hand and
Pretty Noose.
Pretty Noose. Those are two great songs off the Super Unknown, or I forget the name of the album, but those were great songs. That was what was it called?
I forget. I'm sorry. I was going to say it, but I think it was wrong. I forget.
Anyway, those are great songs. That was a great performance. I mean, I remember watching that like live when it happened, and then I had it like downloaded, MP3 for a few years, and that was like one of the best like iconic jewels of like 90s SNL.
Yeah,
Jim Carrey and Soundgarden, like, and the fact they can't iron that out. You're right. It's historical. Like you have to. Don't deprive.
Especially for that property. It's SNL. It's like, this is Lorne Michaels. This is an institution that's been around for like 5 fucking decades. So just figure that shit out and just, at least for that stuff.
Yeah. They've always had weird stuff, SNL, with their copyright. I mean, they didn't even get into the YouTube game until the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
They've really been slow. I don't know if it's NBC or whatever, but yeah, they'll listen to the show and they'll sort it out.
General Electric, I know you're watching. You hear that?
Get your shit together.
In 1999, The Real World Hawaii premieres on MTV. And I remember this because it had the Hawaiian girl, Ruthie. She got maybe some Ruthies in her drink.
I think she was just fucking straight drunk. This was when MTV was like, look, here's the formula. alcohol, teenagers, smash them together. So I think what they did here is get somebody out like in international waters, basically, and they're like, "There's not that many cops in Hawaii. Let's just let these people run crazy. Get Tech in here, get Ruthie. It's gonna be a party." So
Tech Money, shout out
Gonna
to
be a
him, man.
party.
yeah, but
And,
Ruthie was a
also,
problem. I wonder how much like legal shit that they had to do because I remember watching. I was like, every episode, Ruthie's going to the hospital for alcohol poisoning. It's like Jesus.
well, she went to rehab and then she came back after a couple episodes. And I don't know, man. Maybe they have a "Where Are They Now" somewhere on the internet streets.
Ruthie, shout out.
Ruthie.
Ruthie, stay away from those Ruthies. And Bill Cosby. Also in 1999, Mace drops his sophomore album, Double Up. And Double Up, I did not listen to or enjoyed. It wasn't
Get
like
ready.
his intro, which was Harlem World. That was the one with all the hits in 97. But yeah, Double Up, man. I tried. I really did, man. But
You couldn't double up, Steve?
I think this is around the time. Here's the thing, man. Everybody was getting pretty in the rap game. And this is around the time I started listening to metal. And I think, going to Perrysburg High School had an influence, listening to rock, listening to Kiss FM, because it was like, man, this pretty shiny shit in rap, I don't like this. I'm a Wu-Tang guy. I like, what I'm saying, Timberlands and big ass like triple goose downs. Like everybody's got on shiny suits and dressed like Dwayne Johnson in 97. Like this is, I don't like it. Like,
and Double Up fell flat too because they had the first single I think was Get Back or Get Ready. And he relied too much. Yeah, he relied. So the first album, Harlem World, was like the perfect storm. It was right after Diddy's album, No Way Out, and B.I.G. did there were some tracks on Harlem World, I think, that he was on. If not, it was heavily off that piggyback. And then Double Up came out a little bit too later. And I felt like on that album, Mace relied too much on the pretty kind of image. And he did a lot of like the female chorus backgrounds, almost like on every song. And it wasn't gangster at all. It was very like pretty. Yeah. He was talking about the Bentley too much. Like there's too many songs about the Bentleys, and you're like, I get it, dude. It was not, I don't know. It really fell flat for me.
We need more. Like we know you're rich. You're around Sean Combs. I know y'all have money. You're Bad Boy, the house that Biggie built. But like, give us more besides
give us more
and the money. Yeah, man.
It's weird. Those guys had a falling out too. I mean, they like hate each other now. Or
Sean Combs has a bad history, man.
Yeah.
They end up dead or like turn to Jesus. Which isn't,
right.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like there's always like a religious aspect. If you didn't die, like you become like a Muslim, or you like become a preacher, or you just like migrate to another country. So it's something going on.
Then he has a satanic partnership, Steve. So after a while, you're like, I gotta all these human sacrifices and the ghost.
Take a minute.
Stop this.
Don't you think Diddy had? He was at the right. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a smart businessman. He's not a phenomenal rapper or anything, but he's at the right place at the right time too.
He knows how to make the most out of his utensils. What's around him. Like he knows how to make the most out of what's available to him. So like,
and he's an opportunist. He knows how to he knows a good thing when he sees it, and he recognizes that, and he is like. I think of like the thing in business is being motivated enough to make that first step. So whatever that was in his career, he did it, and then it was like everybody else just followed suit.
Just going to
and he did jump into those artists' albums a lot too. Like all the, he was always inserting himself like everywhere. Like, hey, look at me, I'm here. He stayed on the forefront of kind of everything around him.
All in the videos, dancing.
Come to West Coast, come to Death Row.
Classic, man. But also in 99, Sarah McLachlan releases Mirrorball. And I only know about this because of Columbia House. Shout out to Columbia House. And this is one of those albums that I would see all the time in the selections. And it's like, all right, it's out on this day. It came out in 99. All right, I'll check it out. It's actually a beautiful album to sound like that art student.
Nice. Sarah McLachlan. Is this isn't the like Puppies getting foster homes music, is it? That's not Sarah McLachlan. That's Melissa
That is.
Etheridge.
That's Angel. That's on Mirrorball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll
Angel
jump.
goes hard.
Heartstrings, man. She's gonna tug them. She's gonna play puppeteer with your heart. With Mirrorball.
I find it funny that like that Woodstock that's like heavily documented in like 2 different series. Sarah McLachlan was on that stage. She shared a stage, I believe, with DMX and all of those other people. And it's just, I find that ironic that like you're more Lilith Fair, Sarah McLachlan. All right, next up we got Sarah McLachlan with Mirrorball.
She has, there's one, you have DMX with like the Alizé that looks like blood dripping off him, shirtless. And then Sarah McLachlan comes out singing, "Your love is better than ice cream." And you're like, what happened? And then they cut to like, and then like Limp Bizkit comes on and you're like, all right.
Hey, everybody. Korn's going to come out next. But first, here's a song I wrote about a lost puppy. In the eyes of...
And then Fred Durst goes on like, hey, just punch everything. Punch the air, punch everybody.
Hey,
punch
is that guy bleeding on the ground? Stomp on him. He's getting our shit dirty. Fuck him. 90s.
I watched that documentary on Woodstock 99. I never remember, I didn't remember watching it. I didn't watch it live or anything when it came out, but I didn't realize how much of a shit show that really turned out to be.
Oh man, because of MTV News, man. Like, thank you, Tabitha Soren, and what is the guy, Ken
Loader,
Kurt Loader,
yeah.
Well, I could never take seriously. I always thought he wanted to be a serious journalist, and I'm not saying MTV is not serious journalism, but I felt like that guy wanted to be on like CNN or something.
Yeah,
because he was very like, he was older, you know, he was talking to like 15-year-olds and he was like 50 with the suit, and he's like, and next up we have news from the Pearl Jam camp that there might be some troublings on their new album. And you felt like he should have been in Fallujah reporting the news, but he wasn't, and he was kind of bitter about that.
I think he got bitter too, because I think a couple times he's like, and I'm here with Britney Spears, and they'd cut to like commercial and be like, God, fucking kill me. God damn it. Like,
and I'm dead inside. I'm Kurt Loader. This is
Kurt,
MTV News.
You have to interview Jesse Camp, the new VJ that won the contest. Interview Jesse Camp. Hey man, Kurt.
Person Daly's gonna come and take all of our jobs. Fucking hate that guy.
Also, really quick, Kurt Loader, greatest porn name of all time. Kurt Loader.
Oh yeah, look at him.
Just take also 99.
I was going to say something perverted, Steve. I'm just going to stop.
Oh, yeah. I forget. Yeah, of course. Yes. Also in 99, Heavy D releases his album Heavy. Hey, Matt, how heavy do you think his D was?
Steve, his D is so heavy. No. Heavy D releasing an album in 1999? I mean, I don't know. This was a little too late, I think.
It's not bad, but it's like you said, man, it's a little too late. His prime was in the 80s, early 90s, man. But like, he's an actual musician. And he has like, I feel, a commercial voice. When hip hop was starting to become commercial, like with the Sprite commercials and like the various things like the NBA plugs and all of that. Like, I feel like Heavy D was a part of that. He was at the forefront along with like Will Smith and, you know, your Salt and Peppers, like, you know, the easier on the palate hip hop, you know, the MC Hammers and stuff like that, man. And, you know, this album, like, it's given different flavors, different vibes, and it's actually good. But because he dropped it in 99, it kind of like pales in comparison, because this is the DMX era. This is the Shiny Suit era. We have Bad Boy. We have the No Limit and Cash Money. Like, that stuff is bubbling, man. Outkast. And at this point, he was kind of a relic of his time, unfortunately, man. But if you're a Heavy D purist, man, if you just like good hip hop, I would definitely give it a listen, man.
He was also. Oh, sorry, I mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say he was also in that same vein as like LL Cool J, like that late 80s, early 90s New York rap, where I mean, he really a great artist. And then it was almost like the perfect storm. He had that album, he had a bunch of albums, but he had the Now That We Found Love, like early 90s. And then he jumped into he was in Jam. He was on Michael Jackson's first song of that out. Like, it was like this perfect storm. And then he kind of went away, you know, like he was kind of a relic of the time after that, which is unfortunate because he was, he was a good musician, a good artist.
And I didn't know this. He actually dated Nia Long way back in the day, man. Deborah from
Really?
Friday. Yeah, man.
Boys in the Hood.
You lucky
Boys in the
son of a
Hood.
bitch.
In her young
Gee,
days,
she
man.
she could do better than that. Who's she? She's dating that dude, that the basketball coach that messes
Well,
around.
she was married to him, actually. Yeah.
Oh, really? She was married to him.
Yeah, they definitely divorced.
Yeah. We're Heavy D, man. He passed away, I think.
He passed away back in like 2012 or 2013, if I'm not mistaken, man.
Yeah.
So RIP to that brother. But also in 99, Santana released Supernatural. And I listened to this for the first time over the week. And I get why it was getting nominated and all those acclaims when it did, man, because this is a dope album. Like, Santana is a badass guitarist. Another legend. I use that term a lot, but hey, we're talking about the 90s. Legends were created and cultivated. Rob Thomas, we've all heard that song plenty of times in commercials everywhere when it came out. This, even the album cuts, man. Like, I don't even know the lyrics because some of them are in Spanish, but the shit jams. Like, I'm going off of vibes.
Yeah, this shit was fire. It was everywhere too. I mean, this was like Macarena time. Like, all these songs were coming out with a little Latin flair, but this one with Rob Thomas and Santana, like, I didn't know who fucking Santana was. Like, that he was not on my radar at all. But once you heard this, like, everybody, this was on every radio station in Toledo, Ohio.
Smooth, yeah, is still, they still sample that in movies. You still see that pop up here and there and on TV. And Santana's actually, I think, underrated. I mean, he's one of the best guitarists ever, but I feel like people they gloss over him when they bring up like Hendrix and Clapton and like Stephen Stills. Like, he's kind of he is in that zone. Like, he is one of the best. He's been playing guitar for close to 60 years now. And that album was like such a cool rejuvenation to have of his career in like 99, to have him come out with that.
It's a great way to make himself relevant again, man, because he collaborated with other, like, contemporaries. Like, Lauryn Hill was on the album,
Yeah.
Collaborating with different rappers and stuff, man. So shout out to Santana. But also in 99, The Man Show debuts on Comedy Central.
I mean, us young men of this age, when this came out, and we were all watching this. Couldn't help it. Ziggy Zaki.
This is what we needed pre-YouTube, like that's what we needed. Like, our age demographic for guys, 99 was it was like perfect.
Jimmy Kimmel was just knocking it out of the park because he was on that Ben Stein's Money before this, right? I'm assuming that came before this. And damn, I remember the Man Show. I remember like specifically still to this day, there was a segment that him and Adam did where they went to Snoop Dogg's house.
The green room.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that was one of the most, even to this day, I can remember moments from that episode.
I forgot about the kid that they would have. Like, they would have this kid do pranks.
Wasn't it Andy Milonakis?
Was it?
I think so. I think Andy Milonakis was the Man Show boy. I might be wrong about that, but maybe it's just another chubby kid that kind of was shitty to people. But yeah, the Man Show boy, that was vintage.
It was, man. And so was Bill the Fox Foster, who I also forgot, the MC they had for like the first season, who was like the world's fastest beer guzzler. And he would just take them things down.
Yeah.
Like whole, like, pitchers.
I mean, I don't think anybody could beat the man in a chugging contest. This guy could just take a fucking pint to the neck 1 second.
And a lot of nods to Benny Hill, which I will always appreciate.
And the girls jumping on trampolines. I mean, I think we can all applaud that.
I think we all needed that in our lives.
Zicky Zaki, hoy, hoy, hoy. Well, any callbacks, honorable mentions, or takeaways, my good sirs?
Well, I'm going to first, Steve, before we end, we'll be remiss if we don't ask Mr. Clark a couple of our 90s popcorn questions. So, Matthew, first of all, thank you for doing the show. You're amazing. You're a legend.
Oh, no. Thank you guys. You guys are great. I really appreciate you having me, and I'm a fan. So I love everything you do, and I hope this show goes on into bigger and better things always. So thank you guys.
Thank you, dude. Well, before we go, we got a list of questions. I just need you to pick a number between 1 and 50. And based on that number, I'm going to ask you a 90s related question. You just, off the dome, just give me an answer.
All right, let's do 42.
Ooh, 42. Let's see what we got here. 42.
Off the dome.
Is life really like a box of chocolates?
It is not. It is not like a box of chocolates. Some people are allergic to chocolate, so that would be bad if life was really like that. So no, it's not.
Sorry,
some people are allergic to life.
Yeah.
Some people are allergic to life.
Yeah. 2 old ladies near the pool that I at my apartment complex, I think, are allergic to life because I heard them talking about life today. And they both said that they didn't need it. So it was very sad.
Yeah.
Life, I guess,
Poor
for
guy.
them is not like a box of chocolates, but, Forrest's mom, she was sweet. So let's give her a little credit. We love that.
How I
got her
feel.
boy
That was a
into
great
school.
analogy.
She did what she can to get their boy into school.
Your mama sure does care about your education.
And then
great.
we'll do one more, man. Give me one more number, 1 through 50. 42 is out of here.
All right, let's do 21.
Okay. Darkwing Duck, Mighty Ducks, DuckTales. What was our obsession with ducks in the 90s?
That's a really good question. And I feel like the Disney Renaissance had a part in that, where they had all these new characters and intellectual properties coming out that they're like, yo, we have the duck here. The duck needs some love. And I don't know which one came first, but I feel like DuckTales was like the pinnacle. Like that kind of drew everything in. And what the fascination was it was like something familiar, like Donald Duck, who we knew, but there was like a new 90s cool, like exciting adventure feel to it.
But there's something about those ducks in that Disney kingdom. I've always said this, man. The ducks out of the original character, they're the coolest of that brand. Yeah. Like, I never cared for Mickey or Goofy. Shout out to the Goofy movie fans, but like the ducks from Uncle Scrooge to Darkwing to Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And then, of course, Donald, man. Like,
so great.
Launchpad. Also, shout out Launchpad McQuack. Let's not forget.
They
are the coolest.
Grave as this. The ducks, the cartoons, like way back in the day in the 40s with like the escaped gorilla from the zoo and the witches, like they were cool, man. And it's the coolest. Like there's nothing cooler than like a Donald Duck shirt, He's just such a cool character. He's a sailor. Well, he's getting laid, obviously. I mean,
plus Daffy was like the heel.
His junk is ready.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hey, nothing under there. So hey, I'm at it, ready for action.
He's ready.
Quack,
me and my shirt.
Which came out first? Was DuckTales the one that like kicked it off? I get all them.
DuckTales had to be, because DuckTales begot Darkwing Duck, begot. It had to have been Tailspin after that, and then Mighty Ducks was like
Mighty
late 90s. But that Mighty Ducks cartoon, I didn't really care for it, but the visuals, like what they looked like, was dope as shit. So shout out to whoever did that design. That was cool.
I mean, it became a hockey team, a professional hockey team. Like that train was moving, man.
Art imitated life, right into
in Bombay.
Now they're making billions off of whatever hockey. Does it still exist? Do the Mighty Ducks still?
Yeah. They won a Stanley Cup, dude.
Oh, shit. Sorry. My bad, Steve. I didn't know you were an NHL purist like that.
I was just forced to watch shit I didn't want to for over a decade working for Fuck Sports.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You were watching Dallas Stars all the time, weren't you?
Dallas Stars and, yeah, a lot of that, a lot of Los Angeles Kings and, yeah.
The Mighty Ducks, the last thing I'll say about that was, I don't know if they're the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim now or the Anaheim Ducks, but whatever it is, Anaheim sports, they always have to crowbar in Anaheim. Like it's the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles. It's like, we get it. We get you're in Anaheim.
It's short man like, complex because they're like, we're right by LA. Look at us. We have Disneyland. We're here. Nobody, everybody's like, shut up.
They're always crowbarring that in. It's never just easy, like the California Angels. It's the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim or the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. It's like, I get it.
It doesn't even make sense. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're like, you have to put the name in, okay?
That's it.
Fuck it.
They have some deal with the Chamber of Commerce or something. It's like, okay, I'm going. We're going to Anaheim. I get it.
Fuck.
It's like getting those Little Caesars reminders at your doorstep still to this day. Like, dude, we get it. We know what you like, $5 and we're good. Like, why are y'all wasting trees? Like, we know.
Crazy bread. Awesome. It's still there. Great. Thank you.
I still get stuff from Chili's. Like, I haven't eaten Chili's in years, but like way back when I added like a cell phone number or an email or some thing, and to this day I'm still getting like, Matthew, you have free nachos waiting for you at Chili's. I was like, oh thank you.
Hey, man,
very
remember us? We still have those baby back ribs. Remember those?
Come by, stop by. We want to see you. Come on. It's great.
I'll get them one day.
Yeah, well, maybe someday I'll go back to Chili's, but I don't have anything to say other than thanks again for doing the show, Matt. This has been awesome. You're definitely going to come back. And
thanks for having me.
Please tell everybody like where they can find you and everybody in any interpretation. Let them know where to find you.
You can find me on MySpace at Vineyardman at 92. And I am on. You can listen to the podcast on anywhere podcast stream. I'm on Instagram at Shark Matthew and Twitter at KingmanProd. So love to hear from you, and thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and love everything you do. So thank you.
Thank you, man. And only thing I have, man, in '98 WCW Nitro, Chris Benoit and Booker T had like this series of matches for the television title. And this is around the time Stevie Ray breaks away and goes to the NWO. So like they have a little talk in the middle of the ring, Booker T and Chris Benoit, and Chris Benoit has a respect. They do one of those things like, man, you're a good opponent, blah, blah, blah. And I got your back, man, anytime you need me. And Stevie Ray took offense to that because that's his brother. It's like, man, what you need, man? I'm all the muscle he needs, blah, blah, blah. So he just starts beating Chris Benoit's ass. And I only like that because it's nice to see like a child murderer getting his ass beat abruptly. So I did it. In hindsight, I appreciate that. Thank you, Stevie Ray. But please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Please check out Clark the Shark and B3F Podcast and Crushgasm every Wednesday. And don't worry, be movie with Amanda Wade. This is Steve G and Matt G and Matt C with Happened in the
90s. Yeah, bitch.
That's it. I don't even care anymore. We got the Hulkster in this bitch, so it's done.